In this next article from Gateway Pundit, huge exclamation point in all caps, Sidney Powell, witness whom New York Times describes as, quote, always the smartest person in the room, end quote, concludes that hundreds of thousands of votes transferred from Trump to Biden in all battleground states. Ooh, Gateway Pundit turns out to be correct more often than not. They have access to stuff. They're in DC, and they have a network. And if you, I don't know. If you look up their thing on NewsGuard, I think they've got some strikes on their thing. But Tim Pool definitely says that, I've heard him say that those strikes were kind of BS, that it turned out that it was true, that NewsGuard was actually right. NewsGuard's pretty leftist. You can't really trust. If you're a leftist source, you've completely blown your legitimacy because you're a political hack. You're a leftist political hack, dude. You can't be trusted. So that's why you probably shouldn't be a political hack. I am not a political hack because my default stance is just no, it's not true. I'm a skeptic. I'm not going to believe you unless you show me evidence. But I am going to entertain you until I figure out that it's bunk. Reading on in the article, a cybercrimes expert, Dr. Navid Kashavarz Nia? Let me pronounce that name. Dr. Navid Kashavarz Nia may be the one to save the election for, they said, the king of memes here. No, it's for the people of America. If this is true, we're the ones that are getting disenfranchised as voters. Dr. Kashavarz Nia is not a stranger to the mainstream media. In fact, the New York Times published a glowing report that Dr. Navid Kashavarz Nia woo, that's hard to say. Kashavarz Nia? Way back in September, writing that, quote, Navid Kashavarz Nia, those who worked with him always said he was always the smartest person in the room. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's not a complete wingnut. I'm a software and computer engineer. I wrote the world's fastest number printing algorithm. That's my only real big thing that I can brag about, other than, some minor, I got some cool artificial intelligence stuff that can do some memory augmentation. But sometimes I'll mess up and I'll say something bozo. I mean, a lot of people will say that I'm the smartest person in the room too, but nope. Nope. I'm smart enough to know that other people are way smarter than me. But let's see what they said. In his statement to Sidney Powell, Dr. Kashavarz Nia concludes that the election data in all battleground states were altered, resulting in hundreds of thousands of votes transferred to Joe Biden. Here's the statement in what looks like a court document, and it's bullet point 17. It says, I conclude with the high confidence that the election 2020 data were altered in the battleground states, resulting in hundreds of thousands of votes that were cast for President Trump to be transferred to Vice President Biden. I'm not sure why they call them still vice president after they leave. I mean, isn't it former vice president? But I think they still just say President Reagan, President Carter, President Bush. Kind of silly, but whatever. The alterations were the result of systemic and widespread exploitable vulnerabilities in DVS SCYTL/SOE software and Smartmatic systems that enabled operators to achieve the desired result. In my view, the evidence is overwhelmingly incontrovertible. When was this published? This was today. I was just making sure. I'm like, is this old? So they signed this on the 25th of November. There's his Dr. Kashavarznia? I think I got it. Kashavarznia, PhD. So obviously, if he's a doctor, he's pretty smart. It's going to be, pretty smart. I've met some kooky doctors, to be quite honest. Some of them got some straight up bizarre theories, and a lot of them are often dogmatic. They believe, okay, so the way that it works, in order to actually get up to the I'm not quite to a doctor level. I've kind of, dotted up between bachelor's and master's. In some places, I've excelled. Not a doctor. But I know enough of them to know how they work up. They have a power structure, and in that power structure, they utilize the 48 laws of power. If you haven't read it, it's a wonderful book by Robert Greene. Some people say that it's manipulative or something because the power rules are can help you manipulate people, but the reality of the world is that people use these rules against you, and they will manipulate you. So if you don't know what these rules are, then you are going to get manipulated. So it's better that you know of them than to not, because you will see that the people in the workplace will abuse these rules. They have these petty vindictive masters in the workplace. And what it is the people have put all of their life into studying the subject. They're a master, and their identity is based around that mastery. And so if you cross the master, they are very petty and vindictive. They will get rid of you. You do not cross the master. You do everything that the master says, even if it's being petty, even if it's silly, because it's a thing where it's you got to get to the end. If you can't get through the program and learn all the steps, you're not going to be a doctor. You're not going to be a master. You're not going to be able to succeed. So people are very dogmatic in the tech industry, and they get very angry if you go against the grain. And I know this because I invented an alternate theory of gravity. It's based on Einstein's theory of gravity. It's called the theory of thermal relativity. It states that the geometric space in the universe is associated with the periodic table of the elements. That mass is the inverse of space. And that's because when the atoms are moving around out in space, they have energy and they spin out both ways. And then you have a bunch of atoms, and then there's space out here and it's moving out here. And then once they start to the slow down because they're hitting things, then eventually they'll be into a ball. And then on the outside of the ball, there's more space than on the inside of the ball. And then this creates a gravity as we know it. And it so this theory is I don't have any evidence for this. So, but it is very sound. But from stating my theory to a lot of doctors, they just are very, 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 very against the theory of thermal relativity. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing that can be true about this. And then there's research that's actually proving that this actually is true. It's actually related to the phonons that move inside of the atoms, and they're pushing against each other with some spin, and because there's more spin on one side than the other, it causes them to move in one direction. So oftentimes, even when the original theory of gravity came out, people were very much so against it. They thought, no, God created all of this. There's no other thing. And then they wanted to take out a lot of the people who created a lot of the modern science that we know today. So let's get into it. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent there. So Press California reported, as it turns out, attorney Sidney Powell has plenty of firepower to back up her, Kraken claims about the 2020 possibly fraudulent presidential election, including high-tech intelligence experts who concluded the electronic ballot theft tipped the results in key ballot states. First and foremost, Dr. Navid Kashavarasnia is an experienced cybercrime investigator, digital security executive who's worked with the CIA, NSA, FBI, U.S. military counterintelligence, as well as corporate financial giants such as Deutsche Bank and Stripe. So the judge is nowhere near as qualified as this guy. Judge would look at this information and they would have no idea how to do the science. I've spent enough time in courtrooms that I know how this would go. They would bring in the expert witness. They would ask them a few questions. Both parties would have access to asking questions, and then the judge is basically going to determine whether or not he's going to take the word of this expert, because the expert testimony is just that. It's strong evidence. It's not weak evidence. So this guy's testimony in a courtroom would be considered strong evidence because his knowledge of the security of these Dominion Systems voting machines would be vastly superior to that of the judges. In an affidavit filed with Powell's complaint in Georgia court before midnight Wednesday, Kashavarasnia had this bombshell assessment. Hundreds of thousands of votes. Wow. I mean, we've always known these voting machines were bad. We've been talking about how bad these voting machines were probably since George W. Bush was elected. We've always known these voting machines were really bad. I'm utterly shocked they actually allow this to happen, because there's the thing called the 26th Amendment, and let's look up the 26th Amendment real quick. What does it say? It says the right of citizens in the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. Oh, shoot. Never mind. Damn. Okay, so never mind. I got to retract that. I misread that one. Damn. These altercations, he added, resulted from widespread vulnerabilities in voting software and systems that allowed man-in-the-middle cyber attacks by covert operators. Now, no election machine should ever be hooked up to the internet, dude. As a software and computer engineer, I know how vulnerable these systems are. You might think it's secure right now, but the reality is that somebody might find an exploit through both having access to the machine, that they can execute this man-in-the-middle attack through various techniques, such as manipulating the chips on the voting machine, or having access to the model numbers of the chips that are on the machine. Chances are good the mainstream media on cue will launch an assault on the credibility of Kashavarasnia, who currently lives in Temecula, California, in the Democrat shithole state, where they have 27% of the population was born in another country. I mean, this is like a parallel universe, dude. These people, it's like the Mexicans took over California because they got like a massive dope smuggling network, and then the Democrats are so corrupt that they basically want the Latinos to take over because they think white people are racist, and they don't think that we should control this land because we're colonizers, and we stole the land from the American Indians, so they think that the Mexicans should take the land. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, because like in what percent of LA is from Mexico? It's like a third of LA. It's like some number of hundreds of thousands of people are from Mexico. And then they're a sanctuary state. And they got these huge skyscrapers, and we call them ivory towers because Democrats owned slaves. They started the KKK, and they had a really corrupt, racist power structure. And so the ivory tower is because ivory tower is just like a brutal, savage thing. And so they got the ivory towers, and then you got 20 illegal immigrants for every homeless person. And you got homeless people banging cartel dope that they're getting from illegal immigrants, taking shits like almost everywhere in San Francisco. Like, you can't even walk down the street without smelling some home bum shit and piss, seeing some dude passed out next to a heroin needle. It's that bad. I am not even blowing it out of proportion. It's actually that way in San Francisco. The drug problem's so bad, and it's because there's radical income disparity. And why is there radical income disparity? There's radical income disparity because the white population is shrinking. We have a birth rate of 1.8. There's a man and a woman. You got to have 2.1 kids to keep your population up. White people have the vast majority of money in the United States, and when their population shrinks, that means that you concentrated wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer and fewer people. So then you start bringing in millions of immigrants, and then you end up they end up at the bottom of the social hierarchy. So they might have moved here to live the American dream, but they're not going to do it. They're going to have approximately the same standard of living that they had in the country that they came from. So there was no real reason for them to move here. And then you end up, and then the same thing happens with the Asians too, because the Asians' birth rate's even lower, and and then they are like the highest paid minority group in the country. And then the highest paid immigrant group in the country is the African immigrants, and then the next wealthiest group of minorities is the American Indians. So apparently, there's so much racism in America that it's causing approximately 900,000 non-white people to move to America every single year because we're just that bad, because there's systemic racism, which actually turns out to be institutionalized anti-racism. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. If I bring up ivory towers, I'm going to start talking about home bums taking shits on the street, because you could just be walking down the street. You could end up stepping on a pile of shit, and you can get AIDS, hepatitis C, hepatitis B, cholera, the yellow fever, the bubonic plague, the black plague. You could get typhoid fever. You can get You can get HPV, TB, and COVID all in the same place by stepping on a pile of shit with a hypodermic needle in it next to a home bum taking a cough, or home bum banging cartel dope that he got from illegal immigrants while he's coughing. What am I talking about California for? Hold on. Smartest person in the room. This guy was from California. I think I went off on California. I'm sorry. Don't get me started. I live in Oregon. We're right next to California. They have massive amounts of transients flooding up in our streets, and they got like these punk rocker people that are coming up from California, got their pit bulls that they sick on people sometimes. They're like doing heroin on the streets here, taking shits or jacking up our property prices. Which, the people who own the homes are like, yeah, that's awesome. The price of my home's going up. But then all of the rest of the people are like, dude, I don't own a home. I can hardly afford to rent a room, dude. You can't just keep jacking up the rent continually, because what ends up happening is like you're just sucking the money out of all the rural areas around you and just funneling up the top of the ivory tower up in these corrupt Democrat-run shitholes. So what about this? Let's go further into the Kraken. Here's the BBC breakdown of the Kraken. What it is, why the Trump lawyer has released it from the baloney broadcasting company. So this is from a British newspaper. Now, people in America are completely brainwashed. They think that the Daily Mail in the baloney broadcasting company and the Guardian of fake news, they think that these are actually legit news sources. No, they're not legit news sources. First off, they're in Europe where they have anti-hate speech laws. These anti-hate speech laws immediately make the news fake because people can't actually say what they think because they'll be targeted for getting fired, for harassment, for ostracism from quote unquote polite society. I don't particularly think that that's polite society. That doesn't really sound like a polite thing to do to me. Now, I can completely understand if some dude is a jerk racist. If they are always antagonizing people. Me personally, as long as you're a chill person, I care more about what other people think about you, how we get along, and how you get along with the people that I know. If you are a bully, you're a bully. That's one thing. If you're a jerk to people that I like, that's another thing. But if you're an Asian who doesn't like other Asians, I'm not going to hold it against you. So here's the Kraken lawyer. Now, she's been bungling up. I don't know what to say. The news is fake. They've destroyed their reputability because they're all trying to profit off of Trump. Let's look through. Let's take a real quick gander at the other headlines here because you'll see what they're saying. So, Trump appointed judge dismisses lawsuit. Twitter labels Sidney Powell website. That one wasn't it. New York governor says Supreme Court decision. Hold on, no. That wasn't what I was trying to prove. So we can just look through the headlines. And we can just pass through here and just look for Trump. And what you'll see when you go through the headlines, I'm going to have you do it because I want you to download either FeedLab on Windows or Feedly on iPad or Android. Go through the RSS feeds. This is why I do this show, is because they're fake news. This is a business model, and what they're doing is they're trying to get you to subscribe. That's what they want you to do. They want you to watch the ads and subscribe. So what they do is they want to piggyback anything that's popular. That's what they're trying to do. There's a recent case between Candace Owens and Candace Owens sued one of the Facebook fact checkers, and basically the fact checkers were calling her information false because they wanted to piggyback on her. That's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get her viewership by saying that what she's saying is a lie, and so she sued them for a lot of money. Sorry, I'm not proving my point here. I'm not saying anything about Trump. Well, when you see stuff about Trump, you'll notice that what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to watch it. It's not that it's actually news. Typically what it is they'll say that somebody said something about Trump, or they responded to something from Trump. And what it is they're trying to fill up their quota for articles for the day. That's what they need to do, because they need X free articles to get Y free subscriptions. And when they do that, like this, Trump supporter, this is the example that I was looking for. I'm so sorry. It was right here in front of my face. I can't see things in front of my face when I'm on the spot. I can't. If you ask me to find it, I'm not going to find it. So it says Trump supports SCOTUS decision, right? So, like, how is this news? Like, I mean, of course I support almost every SCOTUS decision. What does this mean? It means they're trying to put out an extra article, and people read stuff about Trump because people either love him or they hate him. Let's go back to the thing. I'm sorry, this is taking too long. So the conspiracy theorists. So apparently she's followed by a lot of QAnon people. That's not either here nor there, because the reality of QAnon is that up to 5% of people are pedophiles. Let's look it up. What percent of people are pedophiles? And according to Wikipedia, and maybe we could look at their source, the prevalence of pedophilia in the general population is not known, estimated to be lower than 5% among adult men. So it's up to 5%. Less is known about the prevalence of pedophilia in women. There are case reports of women with strong sexual fantasies towards children. And so when they're speaking about pedophilia, they're talking about the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual for Mental Health definition, and that means that they're attracted to children 13 years of age or younger. If they're 14 or over, they're not a pedophile. So technically, Jeffrey Epstein is not a pedophile. But given that up to 5% of the population of males possibly are pedophiles, that there's up to like 15,000 pedophiles working for the federal government. It's kind of silly to think that they wouldn't form a network of people. There's also drug cartels that have human smuggling networks. They also have they have sex trafficking networks where they are prostituting women out, and so it does happen. And where you have an 18-year-old prostitute, you're highly statistically likely to find a 17-year-old prostitute. Where you have a 17-year-old prostitute, you're highly statistically likely to find a 16-year-old prostitute, and so on down the line into pedophilia. So what is their definition of pedophilia? Was it some groups of people who are banging some teens? Okay, Alex Jones says that QAnon is from the Bohemian Grove. If you're unfamiliar with Bohemian Grove, dude. Sorry. It's my new theme song. It's this group of insanely powerful people that Ghislaine Maxwell's father was allegedly a member of. They do satanic rituals where they do ritual human sacrifice of children. Alex Jones has a bunch of stuff, and it's true. I mean, we can see the pictures of the Bohemian Grove right here. There's the owl god. This is their thing that they sacrifice the child in the middle here. So there is actually an extremely powerful group of people connected to Jeffrey Epstein that is actually possibly engaging in this Bohemian Grove thing. So it's not completely crackpot. The whole thing about them turning babies' brains into gravy. No, it's 3-year-old babies' brains into gravy. That was batshit crazy. Sometimes people are just being funny. It's like shock, but sometimes it's not. I don't believe anything without evidence, but it definitely seems as though there's enough statistical evidence in order to not discount it. So Miss Powell, her reputation with QAnon has been enhanced by her connection with General Michael Flynn, the Patriot, who was very recently pardoned by the king of memes, Donald Trump, President Trump's first national security advisor, and another QAnon figure. So let's see. Here's the Kraken spreaders, the social media conversation with the Krakens, polarized in this current state of politics. Here, release the Kraken. Actual size may vary. I think that's actually kind of funny. So there's, a lot of the people spreading this information on the internet, of course, are going to be wingnuts. And just because you're a wingnut doesn't mean we don't love you. But they'll probably be pretty easy to fool. The vast majority of people, I have conversations with most of these people, they just believe anything that I say. I would say what I said was legit. Probably they would want to believe me anyways, but so what's in the documents? Documents include inaccurate, unfounded election fraud. So what does unfounded mean? Most people do not look up definitions. Having no foundation or basis in fact. Okay, so they're saying they don't have any basis in fact. So Obviously, we're going to have to correct them here. They don't know what a fact is. A fact is not something that is true. That's called a truth. A fact is something that you can prove is either true or false, or neither. That case does actually come up sometimes. My sister and I argued about this nonstop when I was a kid. She thought, no, it's something that's true. No, it's not. Fact, thing they're known or proved to be true. No, a fact is not that. It's something that a fact can be. There are true facts and there are false facts. A fact is something that can be proven true. This is false. You could not have a fact correction if originally it was a fact and then you said, oh no, we corrected it and now it's a fact. Okay, so which one's the fact? One's a false one, one's a true fact. Honestly, I think the dictionary has been overly liberalized. These people, they like to expand definitions. So it starts out that a pedophile is somebody who's attracted to prepubescent children, like 13 years or younger. And then the media wants you to click on the articles. They want you to watch they want you to click on the articles about Jeffrey Epstein. They want you to watch To Catch a Predator. So then they expand the definition from their targeting prepubescent children to a pedophile is anyone that has sex with a minor, regardless of whether or not the statutory age limit is they're under the statutory age limit would make them that sexual encounter legal in another state. So if the girl is, most states have their statutory age limit at 16, but then they'll call somebody a pedophile if they had sex with a 17-year-old. And this is an example of expanding definitions, and it's because they want you to watch To Catch a Predator and to click on the articles about Jeffrey Epstein. That's why this is one of my biggest gripes with the mainstream media is they do this all the time by expanding definitions. And then the dictionary also, too, is guilty of it. They've been expanding the definition of racism, also expanding the definition of far right. Now, it no longer means that you're into steep social hierarchies. It means that you have any sort of element of racism, xenophobia, if you're anti-communist, if you're if you want immigration restrictions, if you're like pro, if you're in favor of biasing rules towards natives, like American Indians, if you think that American Indians should have their own reservation where they have their own rules and then they could bias the rules for themselves, then you're a nativist, you're far right. If you're a Hawaiian and you think that the tourists are taking over Hawaii and that the natives of Hawaii should have the rules biased towards them, you're far right under this definition. Doesn't make any sort of sense. It doesn't mean anything anymore. It's supposed to mean Nazi. It's supposed to mean Sharia law. It's supposed to mean the Chinese Nazi Party because they said they're communist, but they allow private property ownership and they have millions of Muslims in concentration camps, and they have a very steep social hierarchy. They are absolutely not a flat social hierarchy. China is as steep of a social hierarchy as it gets. There is no steeper social hierarchy that you will come across other than in China. Except if they were murdering the people in the concentration camps, actually. So, what are in the documents? They also made further, more far-fetched claims about voting machines used in key states. Ms. Powell says Dominion voting machine software used in Michigan and Georgia allows computerized ballot stuffing. Machines were accessed by foreign agents to manipulate the results of the election. There's no evidence of foreign interference in the 2020 U.S. election or votes being flipped. There was an issue identified of one county in Michigan that was put down to a human error, not problem with Dominion software. What was this one? Dominion machines provided a paper ballot backup to verify the results. So was there anything good in here? Dominion deleted 2.7 million votes. And then no evidence. One American News Network report referred to unaudited analysis of data obtained from an election monitoring group called Edison Research. However, the company's president, Larry Rosen, said the Edison Research had produced no such report. We have no evidence of any voter fraud. OANN did not provide any evidence to back up its claim. President Trump and his supporters have also been sharing a report from Fox News anchor Sean Hannity claiming Dominion voting machines flipped in key states from Trump to Biden. The report highlights problems in Antrim County, Michigan, where Dominion machines were used, suggesting they could be widespread software issues in other counties. There's an issue in Antrim County, but it wasn't Dominion software that failed. It was down to human error, as pointed out by Michigan Secretary Jocelyn Benson. You can see that here in this. False claims from Rona McDonald have no merit. I'm not going to go too much into that. We got to get through this article here real quick. Dan Walsh, a computer scientist who acts as an advisor of national guidelines for voting machines, says there were, with the newer machines that generate paper ballots, including the ones used in Georgia, any sort of computerized ballot stuffing would necessarily involve misprinting those paper ballots, which could be certain to be discovered while the election was going on. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd have to inspect the thing. I personally think every single thing about elections should be open source. I'm not exactly sure why it's not open source. I want to know what's in those voting machines. You should not be able to hack a voting machine. It should be unhackable. The chain of custody should be able to prevent anyone from hacking a voting machine. That's the only way that you can prevent it. There's no possible way that you can actually protect an election without proper management of the chain of custody. So we don't know. They're not putting in enough information. It would take a while to actually get what information we wanted to know out of it. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So what happens next? Legal experts say the lawsuits are unlikely to get very far, as they include numerous assertions without citing any convincing evidence. Convincing is a matter of opinion. I've seen enough evidence myself that I would demand a robust audit, not a full audit. We can't be questioning the integrity of our elections. That's absolutely unacceptable. That's how you get people to secede from the Union. I personally think all of the red states, all of the rural areas in blue states that are red should all leave the Union. I personally think these big Democrat-run shitholes are a threat to our country, such as Seattle, such as San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. So these cities, what they will do is they jack up their rent really high. They end up with, we want to live there, you got to pay $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month for like a one-bedroom apartment. You want a nice house, $10,000 a month. Like, that's insane. But to these people, that's just chump change. And they're just funneling money. They're just straight up raking in the dough, raking it in from all the red states, just funneling the money right up to the top of the ivory tower, where you got some jerk anti-racist liberal up there, won't hire any of the conservatives because he thinks Republicans are racist. They hate them. They prefer to hire minorities and women on diversity tickets because it's a white power structure up there, and they need to fill their quota for minorities so that people don't call them racist, because when you call them racist, then they lose their power because they've created a system where they can attack people, calling them racist, sexist, and xenophobic in order for them to control the workplace. And this ends up causing it so that they can just maintain power by removal which is called subtractive power as opposed to additive power. Subtractive power is where you subtract elements to maintain power. Additive power is where you add elements to maintain power. And what they're trying to do is it's all just a scam to get more money out of their customers. In reality, they go off of GPAs for their hiring process, who you know, and what your prior work experience was, whether or not it's relevant. And they don't particularly care about your skin color. They are blind on that. But they don't want you to call them racist because most of their people are woke, anti-racist because they fire the ones who they say are racist. And here are the GPAs for most of the races. This was up to 2009, so it's not as recent as I would like, but the trend remains. We would just assume it would be the same trend that's been going on for very long, where you have the black people have the worst grades of all of the races. The Latinos have grades that are still not good enough to get into engineering school. Here's the white people's grades, 3.09. Sorry, let me tell you the GPAs because some people might be podcast. As of 2009, some people might be listening through a podcast. The black people's GPAs on average in 2009 was 2.69. The Latinos' grades on average were 2.84. And the white people's grades were 3.09, and the Asians' grades were 3.26. And so they're saying that they are hiring for a diversity, but trust me, they're lying to you. I used to work as a minority outreach advisor for Portland State University, and they told me very specifically we were not looking for the black kids because their grades weren't good enough. We were looking for the Latinos, the Asians, and the women. And so that's why you can't trust these people one bit at all. Here's a graph that I made on this, and so it shows populations of where the Democrats live. This is a height bar. This from the 2016 presidential election, and you can see that most of the people who vote for Democrats are actually in big cities here. And the reason for that is because you mainly will find socialists in big cities. And that's because socialism is a scam, and it can only work in big cities where you can steal from the countryside. So all these red areas, they just basically jack your money. They jack up the prices. They got a control on the markets, and because they're at the top of the ivory tower, and they just funnel your money from these red states all the way up to the top of the ivory tower, at which point in time they use it to rig our elections through funneling the money back into the system in dark money. So you can also see over here, we have the average incomes of the different races. And what you can see are that the blacks are on the bottom, Hispanics right above them, whites right above them, and Asians right above them. And please notice the average here. And then it ends up turning out to be the same as the GPAs. And so this is called the white power structure of the ivory tower, where you have at the top, you have ivory tower liberals. Underneath them, it says white feminists. It's supposed to say radical feminist. I messed up. Radical feminists are right below them. They're the ones that didn't get a good enough job to work in the ivory tower, so they might work as like a outreach advisor for the ivory tower, or they might work as a high-paid janitor. So below them, you have hood Democrats. These are low-income Democrats from big cities, the ones that are in here, the blue bars. This is where hood Democrats live here. And then below them, down here, you have the poor whites and Antifa. And so what it used to be the 5-tier racial hierarchy, where you had the white people at the top, the white man at the top, white woman below him. Then you had the black man below the white woman. Then the black woman, sorry, did I say black man? Black man below the white woman, black woman below the white man, and then you stick every other race below them in any order that you want to maintain the power structure. And so what they did was, by instituting anti-racism and feminism, they made it so that the ivory tower liberals were at the top, and then the radical feminists right below them, hood Democrats. Because they get diversity tickets, they're above the poor whites and the Antifa or the communist kids. And so you could see basically all of this is just a scam, what the Democrats have been doing in order to maintain their voter base. This is the entire game for them, is they have to control the minorities in the big city. Why? Because they've always been white supremacist, and they've always controlled the minorities in the big cities. It never changed. They've always been at the top of the ivory tower because it's the ivory tower. So what happens next? One key piece of new evidence provided in a sworn statement by Dominion whistleblower, but their name is hidden. Legal experts have pointed out that if a witness is put forward, their testimony needs to be challenged, but which can't be effectively done if their identity is concealed. Well, they would get death threats if their identity was not concealed. So you typically will conceal the witness's identity in that case. In fact, the court would mandate that you do that. Lawyer Mike Dunford said if your witness needs to maintain hidden due to legitimate concerns for safety, there's a way to make that happen, but those ways do not include hiding their identity from the court and the other side's lawyers. Okay. All right. We've contacted Secretaries of State Georgia and Michigan for their responses to Sidney Powell's lawsuit. U.S. government cybersecurity agency has said the 2020 election was most secure in American history. I don't think so. The most secure elections in American history were where you had town halls where people came in and they voted in person because people weren't hiding their vote. They didn't. No, if you are taking the ballot and you separate a mail-in ballot from the envelope with the signature on it, later on you can't do an audit. So I'm not sure what planet these people live on. So in the planet that I live on, when you do an audit and there's people that were involved in the audit, such as an insurance claim, you call the people and you check to see certain percentage of people that their votes were tallied correctly. If their votes were not tallied correctly, or if the people said, no, I put a different number on that insurance number, well, then you've got insurance fraud or voter fraud. So you cannot have a secure election with a untracked secret ballot. So there's two types of ballots. There's a tracked secret ballot, and there's an untracked secret ballot. A untracked secret ballot is where you separate the ballot from the envelope and you have no way of matching the signature back to the voter. A tracked ballot is where each ballot has a ballot ID number. That ballot ID number that ballot also has a card with the ballot ID number. And when you get your ballot, you would take that voter ID number or that ballot ID number. And whenever you cast your ballot, they would verify a certain percentage of these votes by calling the people and verifying that their vote was casted correctly. And then you would print up the results and you would put them back at the polling, you're supposed to do a polling place. You're supposed to have in-person voting is essential to a democracy. Mail-in voting is not essential to a democracy. Given that we've always done in-person voting since the dawn of democracy, this has been a method of voting. A method of voting is a method to petition the government. When you switch to all mail-in voting, what you've done is you've reduced the times, the places, and the manners in which you can vote. You've restricted it. You can no longer vote in the manner of in person. That was abridged. It was reduced in, and then you cannot do it at polling places. And the reason why you would want to do it at a polling place is because while you're in line at the polling place, you can speak with others in line. You can both get information about law or something you're going to vote on that you weren't aware of. You can also convince other people to vote the way that you are going to vote. This is an essential process of democracy. But instead, what they've done is they've isolated us all in our homes. They've locked us down, and they have fed us all a different set of facts through social media, because Facebook has been tracking you all around the web using, what is that software that they use? Can somebody put in the comments below what that, Mark Zuckerberg recently testified before Congress, and then he got walloped by they had a Facebook insider revealed the software that they used. And what was that software that they're using to track people all around the internet? It's sketchy as it gets. They've been, I don't even know what they're doing. They're saying I somehow like agreed to some terms of service. I have no clue what I agreed to. When I clicked on that, I was drunk, dude. I don't know what I clicked on. I don't even know what it was. It said log into your thing, and it said we changed our terms of service, and I don't know what it was. I was incapacitated whenever I clicked on the thing. It's not legally valid. But then they're using it to track us all around the internet. And then they use this to feed you a false set of facts. Everybody gets their own custom set of facts. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to maximize the amount of time that you spend on social media so that they can have a monopoly, a global monopoly on social media. That's their game. They're fraudsters. Is there anything else in here? Let's look. There's another one here. So what was the... Oh, shoot. Hold on. Looking for this picture. Here. So they said that she confused Benville, and so they tried to discredit do not allow for any sites for them to access virtual reality. They're going to open up Steam on you. So where's the thing? So where was the claim? I'm looking for the image. You've probably seen this image. And they said that they messed up, that this Benville precinct had 350%. And so they said, oh, it's false because Benville's in Minnesota. Only there's one problem with that. It's Belleville. They misspelled it because she it was riddled with typos. I mean, that doesn't, it's a little bit better. Belleville is a city in Wayne County in the state of Michigan. It's not Benville, it's Bellevue. So this is why you can't trust the mainstream media. This is one example of the type of behavior that you cannot trust the mainstream media. Why? Because they want you to click on the ad. They want to get the ad revenue. They're putting out X free articles so they can get Y subscriptions. It's a scam. And it had about 3,991 in a census, and that is the size of a voting precinct. So that's what you're seeing up here is the voting precincts in, right, it's not on here, right? Right, these are the voting precincts in Wayne County, and one of them is Bellevue, right? So these people are wingnuts. They just want you to click on it. They're like, oh, fact-checking their main voter fraud claims. Oh, it's bunk. It was in Minnesota. No, it was a typo, dude. No, it's in Wayne County. It's Belleville. So this is why I haven't really been doing a show recently. Well, hold on. Also, I have not been doing a show because one of my best friends in the world died. She was my homegirl from back in the day that I used to rave with, go to psytrance parties and do 3D art. And then she started doing heroin and being a hooker. And her heart stopped. It was tragic. So I shut down for a little while. She was one of my best friends in the world. I gotta keep going. All right, so what else we got here in this next article? Hold on, wait. Is this... Here, we're going to go over here. Here's the Twiddle labels Sidney Powell's website unsafe. Hold on, do we want a video of this? I'm going to make a video of this here. Let me... So, hey, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Or if you don't like this video and it sucked because I was rambling, just dislike. I don't care if you like or dislike. Tell me the truth. If I suck... Put it down in the comments. You suck. You're stupid. You're a liar. You don't know what you're talking about. And don't forget, the best way to support any YouTube channel is to share the video on social media.